Hello, I'm David Magdale. I'm one of the people that runs the PR and publicity for the film festival, the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. We are so happy to be here. Every Saturday in October, we're doing at noon, we're doing these talkbacks with some amazing filmmakers and producers. We had our first one last week with Finding Ying Ying. And today we're here with two amazing producers as we celebrate Diane Quon and we celebrate Nina Yang Bongiovi. But welcome to the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, presented by Visual Communications. Thank you for joining us today for our C3 Converse, Artist Conversation in partnership with ADOC, which is the Asian Documentary Filmmaker Network of over 600 Asian Americans working in documentary. We are mainly filmmakers, both award-winning veterans, emerging, but also include programmers, writers, journalists, curators, funders that work to increase the visibility and support of Asian Americans in the documentary world. And we're partnering together with OYEATMF, which stands for Open Your Eyes and Think MF. It's a platform that myself and my colleague Vince Johnson started as kind of a response to the lack of, I said that the imbalance, I think, for certain films and filmmakers and people who felt they were on the margins, who couldn't get through in what was the ecosystem that I call it ecosystems of 2019. And so we were interested in really creating a space and voices for films from BIPOCs, LGBTQ, and anyone that felt on the outside. So we launched things through virtual cinema, and we're going to be doing panels and seminars and providing resources and talkbacks. We just want to make sure that we can be part of the change that's happening right now in 2020. We're all home in this pandemic. We're all here on Zooms. I think one thing that we realized, even with the film festival being virtual, we've created even more community than ever before. And that's why these C3 Converse are so important, I think, because for us as Asian Americans or Asian Pacific Americans, it's good for us to know who are our storytellers, who are the people that are bringing our stories to the forefront, who are the people such as these two amazing producers who are actually supporting the filmmakers and these stories. And so we want to bring this to you. This is as much as a conversation for you as it is a conversation for these two amazing women. Also, I want to thank all of our partners who made the 36th annual Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival possible. Thank you especially to the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Comcast NBC Universal, California Arts Council, SAG-AFTRA's Producers Industry Advancement and Cooperative Fund, the National Endowment for the Arts, HBO, and Warner Media. So thank you to all those sponsors, because without you, we would not be able to do that. And let me give a shout out and a thank you to all of you who are tuning in this afternoon, because it's after 12, right? Because it's so important that you are here. And every week we're going to be doing this at noon. Next week in our noon slot, we're going to have three amazing first-time documentary feature filmmakers. The filmmaker and they're all women. Alice Gu from The Donut King, Yi Shen from First Vote, and Jenny from Finding Ying Ying. Sorry, we just had it last week. Anyway, but it's so great because I think these are opportunities. And if anything in COVID, and we were talking last night, that this is a really great opportunity. So, and it's going to be hosted by Nan Fu Wang. So it's going to be really, really great. So with today's panel, let's just get going here. It's going to be a conversation. It's not going to be, I'm going to sign off and let these two amazing women take over. But let me just give a little background. We have their bios will be in the chat so you can see, but Diane Quon is like the hardest working documentary producer in 2020. I think she has like 80 projects that are out there right now, but she was Academy Award nominated for Minding the Gap. If you guys remember, that was like last year together with Bing Liu. This year she has Finding Ying Ying, the dilemma. What was the dilemma? What's the title of the dilemma?
The Dilemma of Desire.
The Dilemma of Desire, which is amazing. And also Wuhan, which is still to be coming out. And we're going to have some really great news this week on that particular film. and then she's a consulting producer on a number of projects. First Vote and the Morris, the what's it, Morris County?
Missing in Brooks County.
Girl, I'm sorry, Missing in Brooks
There's
County.
a lot. It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's a lot. So she's really very busy, and they brought her into the Academy this year. So this is so great. And then, we thought, who best that we could have this conversation with? And all I kept coming back to was someone who's become a friend over the years and someone who inspires me also on a daily basis for what she does. And this is producer Nina Yang Bongiovi. And she, you'll hear from them and I'll be quiet, but she had Fruitvale Station as a producer, Sorry to Bother You, The Godfather of Harlem, Dope, Roxanne. I mean, she's killing it. And what I like about both of these women, they come from a space where it's really about bringing other people with them. And it's about supporting these stories that don't get told. So without further ado, let me back out here and let me turn this over to the amazing Nina Yang Bongiovi and Diane Quon. I'll come back in at the end, like for 2 minutes, and we'll try to take some Q&A questions. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions, and we'll try to take them if we have time. Thank you so much. Have a great talk back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Nina. Wait, I'm turning up my volume a little bit.
Cool. Hey, thank you everybody for tuning in, all the participants supporting Diane. I'm really here to support her as an incredible documentary producer. And I admire your tenacity in docs, because I always say documentaries are so tough to produce. And is it okay for you to tell our participants like what you do, like what does it mean to be a documentary producer?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Nina. I mean, I'm a huge admirer of yours too, and I can't believe I'm here with you on the Zoom, so it means a lot to me. I think for docs, and we were talking about this yesterday, being a producer can vary depending on when you come in and what the needs of your director is. A lot of times directors are director producers and some are strictly directors. But in general, I'd say that you were there to work with the director on getting their vision up and done onto the screen. So whether it means if they're still in development, helping us develop the story and develop a timeline, develop a budget, and then make it happen, whether it's actually planning the shoots, definitely finding funding, writing grants, and then developing a plan, like how I like to think about it early. Who is our audience? Starting to think about who is our audience, what is our story, who are we trying to reach, and how do we get there? And at the same time, who do we think our buyers are going to be, like, based on that audience? So how do we start marketing it to them as well? So I feel like we were talking about these docs can be anywhere from 2 years to 10 years. So it's a long process, and I feel like you have to really be collaborators on all those.
And what I've seen that the documentary market transform in the last several years for the better, meaning it's a healthier market because the streamers are in play, and or more likely because they are in play, that it inspires more docs to be produced because it is a healthier marketplace. Do you feel that that's what's been happening?
Yeah, I do think I definitely see more diversity in the product that's out there, and I'm so proud of so many people, BIPOC filmmakers, getting their product out there, getting made and actually being seen. But I still feel that I feel like it's still difficult to break through, especially if you're a first-time filmmaker and if you don't have a producer or someone supporting you to help mentor you through. I think it's still hard to get past the gatekeepers because it's so relationship based. And because I'm fairly new to this is what I really discovered that first year was so hard to break in 2016. But then once we were able to get out there, and definitely because of Minding the Gap, that's allowed me to meet a lot of people, and so I can help other filmmakers who are first-time filmmakers. But I think it's still hard. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Whenever someone approaches me to produce a doc, I get really nervous because I don't think I'm a great doc producer, because it is really so challenging because of the amount of time that it takes to, complete a film. And then the funding of it, it's the business model of it, of pitching investors to invest in a doc, is a totally different approach than a narrative fiction film. And, but I do some, but it's a really, that's why I admire your work, because I commend you for taking it on because of the time and also the limited budget that you have for you to produce something great, and you've done it. So it's, yeah, docs are, I always say whenever somebody asks me, I'm like, now I know, I'm going to say, you need to go to Diane.
Oh gosh. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
How did you get started, Nina? I'm just curious.
I got started a while back. I actually started my production work in Hong Kong and in Shanghai in action films. I worked in the martial arts action genre, and that's where I cut my teeth in the production world. And after 4 years of it, I wanted to produce. I still at the time didn't know what that meant until I got into trying to find IP, try to develop, and I failed at it miserably for many, many years. But it was really a time for me to learn of what it really meant to produce. And we talked about this before, Diane, like a lot of people don't understand what producers actually do. And it took me a long time to understand what producers actually do. And until like I met Forrest Whitaker in 2009. We decided to start a production company called Significant Production in 2010. That was when I really had to show up and say, okay, I'm going to produce from all the years of failing at it. Let me give it a shot. And I had a lot of weighing on my shoulders going, if I can't do it now, I should just quit, and I was really fortunate to have an ally like Forrest who say, you can do this. What kind of story should we focus on? And we were so fortunate that our first feature is Fruitvale Station with Ryan Coogler.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and that process was hard because that was a first-time director, like what you're talking about, first-time directors. He's a first-time director. When I met him when he was still in grad school. So to take a project on when someone hasn't even graduated and believe in that, and we were so blinded by the love for the project and love for the filmmaker that at the time, I didn't realize the marketplace was so challenging for BIPOC filmmakers and storytellers. And it still is today, but at that time, I was 2011 when I met him, that going out to try to raise money was practically impossible.
Yeah.
So that was I feel like my real foray into producing wasn't until Fruitvale Station, and then from then on till now. So.
Yeah, I would say, so 2015, when I thought I would like to try doing doc producing, I was able to volunteer at Cartemquin Films here in Chicago. And they've been making social justice films for 50 years. And director, Maria Finizzo, the director now of Dilemma Desire, she was willing to have me work on a film that she had just finished in the game. And it was in marketing, which is my background, was in marketing. So I thought, okay, great, I could help her in something I know, but then hopefully learn like how do you make a doc, and then how do you get it out there? At that point, it was already done, so it was more the distribution part and the impact work. And I was lucky because the producer there took me under her wing, and really I asked her questions like everything from even what are deliverables and what's ENO, you know, basic things like that. I just kept asking her questions, and I learned so much by being under her wing and Maria's, so that by 2016, when I met Bing, at least I had a glimmer of like what a producer does.
Yeah.
Because he was a first-time filmmaker and I technically was a first-time producer, I think in a way too, it was good that we just kept going, let's just go for it. You know, we didn't know any different, but to just keep trying, even when doors would close. We wrote so many grants, and so many people would say, it's a nice story, but you know, it's a nuanced story. It isn't about a famous person or a famous thing happening in the world. It was about 3 skateboarders coming of age. And, you know, thankfully, POV finally came in to allow us to really fully focus on the film. But like you said, it's like every dollar, like we were really fighting to get funds so that we can keep moving forward. Yeah.
And what you just mentioned, what a producer does, you said deliverables and E&O insurance. A lot of people be like, what's that? Those are, when we think about deliverables, it is such a frightening term to me. I'm sure to you too, Diane, because people are confused. Some people think that producers, you know, work with talent. They show up on set for lunch and they'll show up at the premiere, but the rest of us are grinding away trying to deliver a film. And what that means is like the technical elements and the legal elements all had to be tied up in a bow so we can present it to a distributor. And that could be 50 pages of deliverables. And those things are so tedious, such a nightmare. And that's what producers do, you know? And I think that that's the real aspects of producing, is having something from beginning to the very end, to deliver to a distributor, to market alongside with the distributor, to give feedback, and then bring it out to the marketplace. It's a long process.
It is. And even after a film is done, you know, oftentimes the director is on to their next project. And meanwhile, the producer is still wrapping the bow, like you said, and making sure all the deliverables are there. And then making sure all the other platforms that you hope that the film will show on, that you're still making future deals and still working on the project. Like Minding the Gap, we have a new deal with Criterion Channel. I'm really excited that Criterion is bringing out a DVD, and so we're just doing like the production for that. And this is 2020, so it feels like the film just continues on. When you're a producer, you're still
we take on a lot of unglamorous jobs that nobody wants to do, like the filing of the film LLC.
But on the other hand, I mean, and I know that this of you, Nina, you're so involved in the creation part too, and in the development, and that is, you know, you do get to be part of that, which I think is really rewarding, developing the story and working with the story.
So exciting, because you're starting something from an idea or a concept, right? And then you're presenting elements, whether it's a life rights agreement or an IP acquisition, and then that process of development is critical. And then the fundraising part comes in. You're just like, this is, you know, kill me now. And then and then you go, and then the physical production, and then it's and then you're solving problems, you know, the whole time. And the real producers know this is like, it's a real job that somebody has to be responsible for. At the same time, we also know it's actually a sustainable career. I think that that's what you and I want to talk about is
Yeah.
it is a sustainable career. A lot of times when I talk to Asian Americans, especially, they don't want to pursue a career in producing because it's not really seen, you know? People want to produce, they want to be in front of the camera, right? They want to be actors, writers, writer-directors, but I hardly hear people say, I want to be a producer, you know, and hopefully this will demystify some of these elements that it is a sustainable career and we need producers to be able to champion this out.
Yeah, I really believe that we do need producers. I feel so lucky now that after Minding the Gap happened and then working on all these other projects, so many people, and I'm sure for you too, Nina, especially young filmmaker or new filmmakers of color, and come to me and say, can you help produce my film? And I wish I could do them all, but I just can't. So I keep thinking, like, what do we need to do? And that is to have more producers.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy, like, to work alongside to help the new producers, but we need like a new somehow to develop producers.
Yeah, same. I feel it because, you know, our bandwidth is only so much, and I know you and I both want to help emerging storytellers, whether in doc or in the narrative fiction space, but it's like we need more of us to be able to build an Asian American community, Asian community of filmmakers, but that it goes hand in hand with the amount of producers.
Right. How do you pick your films, Nina? I mean, how did you know Fruitvale Station was something you wanted to take on with it being a first-time filmmaker? I mean, straight out of school. Was he still at USC?
He was still
at that time, Ryan. Yeah.
He was still in grad school at the time. I feel like that was the beginning of me honing my skill of figuring out what stories to tell and what filmmakers to champion. And I think that when I met Ryan, I just felt a kindred spirit of somebody who would traditionally be blocked by Hollywood, you know, somebody of color, a story that isn't so big, commercial, entertaining, but it was so critical and important to tell. And hearing Ryan's story of why he wants to make that film as his first film, of why he related to Oscar Grant, it really connected with me in a different way of like, I'm like, if Forrest and I don't help him, who's gonna champion him? And that film was really just love. It was just pure love. Like this young man had such a unique perspective. And then also his short films. He left me his short films and they were so powerful. They weren't made with much money, but they were so compelling and powerful that we're like, let's do it. Let's take this on. And that kind of spiraled into the other films that we've done. Many of them are first-time filmmakers, but it's really about the storyteller, the filmmaker, and his or her vision of like what they can do. And I kind of forgot the commercial aspect for a little while because we also took on Chloe Zhao's first feature.
Yeah.
You know? And that
I love that one. So my brother taught me.
Yeah, that was really uncommercial, and everybody's like, "Are you guys crazy?" And she's an artist. She's a beautiful artist. Creates stunning imagery. So how do you choose filmmakers?
Yeah, I definitely choose based on the story too. I think you have, no matter what, I want the stories to matter, but I also feel like we have to keep in mind that we hope that we have an audience, and we hope that we can sell it somewhere. And so it also has to be beautifully told or entertaining in some way. So I always look at the story being told in a unique or different way, that really I feel passionate about. And then I think we talked about this too. I feel like I really have to feel connected to the filmmaker and feel that they see me as a collaborator versus just the money person. Because like we say, fundraising is like the hardest part. So the part I enjoy is working with the director on the story and developing it. So I always hope that that my goal is to work with filmmakers who see you as a partner. And that definitely was true, for instance, with Bing. I saw from the very beginning that he has strong vision for what he wanted to do, but he is very open to hearing what I wanted to say, or the other folks at Curtin Glen, and really working together to make the best film.
So because you've had quite a bit of success in the doc space, I know that you are still working on fundraising, working on projects independently. Have you pivoted where you're like, I'm just going to take this straight to a studio and pitch it and have them fund it? Or is
not yet, I would have to say. So I really started in 2016, and because films take so long, docs take so long to make, that's why I have so many this year. They all are like happening now. And all of them were like from the beginning, just really figuring out different ways to fundraise. Everything from Kickstarter to equity partners to grants or to private donors and fundraisers. But now that they're finishing, and because I'm lucky in that different people are coming to me now with projects, I am now trying to balance, a slate of films so that I can do first-time filmmakers who usually don't have any money, and it means finding funding, and then other projects where the hope is to go to someone upfront, a distributor upfront, and get the funding before even starting. But I only can start doing that now, I think, because of having a little bit of success, that it allows me to be able to do that. And I'm looking forward to that, because hopefully then it balances out. Like you said, sustainability, like the first few years where I'm always looking for funding, it means not always being able to be paid. But now, because I've been able to sell some films, and then also now hopefully find buyers who will buy the film ahead of actually putting in money, I feel like I can do that, and balance that.
Cool. Yeah.
What about you? Is it easier to find funding now?
It's I don't know. Easy is a
Not easy.
is
People are more open.
I think funding is always a challenge, no matter what it is, when it comes to film entertainment. I saw one of the questions in the chat. It says that, how do you work with like a fund? I luckily, from the films that I was able to produce, we actually turned a profit on every one of them, which is kind of shocking. And
that's great. Yeah.
And so more recently, earlier this year, I started a fund called the Group, which is me and 6 other Asian American business leaders who created this film fund. And it's a pure production fund, meaning that we would come in to invest in projects that we feel has a certain significance when it comes to branding. How does it change the business? How can we move the needle? And because it is with my Asian American business partners, we are looking at more Asian projects, which is really nice. I have a very wonderful group of investors, since Fruitvale to Current, that won't challenge me on like, oh, is it gonna make it, or is it gonna do well? Because there's a lot of trust. But then
that's great.
I have a lot of weight that I have to carry on my shoulders to make sure that I choose the right films to champion, produce it cost effectively and responsibly, and hopefully understanding the marketplace, and you pivot as you need to. And then also working with distributors on acquisition. So there's the fund that supports that initiative. That's more for independent films. But then there's also projects that I'm developing in-house that are larger, that doesn't fall in the independent model. And I work with studios directly. And, so luckily I'm in both space, in the studio space as well as an independent space. Studio films take so much longer to do, and they're very risk averse. So
Mhm.
the independent space is always where you launch new voices, and that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to keep that.
How do people, uh, do they just reach out to you about the fund and pitch their projects, or how do they take advantage of that?
I,
Your-
I think when we first announced we got everything under the sun, and then, but it's like, I want to inform filmmakers and other producers, like, we still have to highly curate it.
Yeah.
Because my finance partners and general partners in this fund, they're still business folks, and it's
Right.
about building the sustainability in film financing.
Mhm.
Because if you're financing in the films that are going to fail, or that, if you believe you invest in 10 and one of them will pop, that's not our business model.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't do that. We want to
Right.
be able to highly curate something that I haven't seen this in the marketplace. There's something here really special. I think
Yeah.
the audience will resonate with it. Is it timely? You're like, everything that we do as producers, Diane, it's like,
Yeah.
we have to consider a lot of things, because it's us on the line when we take the money
Yeah.
and put it in the project. It's
Yeah.
us on the line.
Yeah. 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 I think about that all the time, especially with investors, is thinking like, I'm going to have to be talking to them. So you want to feel like, if I'm going to pitch them a project, it has to be a project that I feel like I have a good chance of earning money back. Although, I mean, I think especially in the doc world, they understand that it's risky. Doc financing is really risky. But I think personally, and I'm sure like for you, I really want to do my darndest to be able to pay them back, and for everyone, even if it's a little. It's not like we're not going to become millionaires or anything, but at least to be able to pay them back and earn a little bit. Yeah.
It's like, that's something we stress. Like, when I talk to filmmakers, they'll say, this is my film and this is my budget, and I'll look at the budget and I'm like, are you sure this is your budget? Because usually people aim really high and thinking that it's easy to raise money. It is so hard to raise money.
Right.
And then the more you take, that means you have to make that money back,
Right.
pay back your investors with premium before any of the creative team can see a back end.
Yeah.
So we have to be hyper conscious of what the budget level is. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because on my end, I actually work closely with sales agents on like looking at a project up front and say, this is the budget I'm looking at. Does this meet what's going on in the marketplace? That way I know where the break-even point is. Do you ever do that with sales agents?
I haven't done that. Like I would say most of the time I've talked to sales agents is at the end, when the film is almost ready and we're about to bring it out to the world and hopefully find a buyer. But I think that's a great idea to just, even if they're not your official sales agent, to pick their brain when we're developing the budget, to say, is this reasonable? Like, would we ever make the money back? Or so yeah, that's a great idea. I'll have to do that.
That's what I do. I hold my sales reps by their word. If they're saying that's too high, but if you can make this film at this point, and I do make the film at that point, I'm like, you better because you made me go to this level, right? But it's a really great process of not only managing your budget, but you learn about the business, because it's a good open exchange conversation between producers and sales agents. That way you also manage expectations of investors and also filmmakers, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you got to make it for this because this film is so specialized. But one thing we fight against is if they say, well, you got to make it super low because it stars people of color. Then that's a different conversation. Yeah.
I'm wondering, Nina, so what has been like the biggest challenges that I feel like, you hit it right away with Fruitvale Station, but although you said you were working on action films and failed many times before that, but what were the biggest challenges in trying to pursue your dream of being a producer?
I think a blanket challenge I still face today is because I work in the space of projects that star people of color.
Mhm.
That is a overall arching issue and challenge. Even though this year is a reset year for Hollywood, I'm still gonna push the buttons of people who say that they are about inclusivity, they are about this and that, but then it's like, is Hollywood really gonna put in the right acquisition amounts, give people the right budget equity? So it's like I see my counterparts in the business, if they had enough experience, like this equivalent of experience I've had, they can greenlight things like that.
Mhm.
I still can't because of the subjects that I choose, because they only dwell in the BIPOC space.
Mhm.
So that's a real wake up call for me, you know.
Mhm.
What's the biggest challenge you see?
I agree. I think that when it's a more nuanced, like I said, for like Minding the Gap, when it's more nuanced story, and it's at least, so Minding the Gap was about wasn't necessarily Asian story, but it was a new first time filmmaker, and I could just see when I'm pitching it, the people, you know, whether it's CNN or HBO, and I love their products, and I know it's a business. So I understand that they have to have projects that they can be sure of that's going to be commercially successful. So the challenge to me is like, how do we find a place then for stories that are more nuanced, or are stories that haven't been told before, but need to be told. It's just we don't get that chance to tell it. So it's still to me such a challenge figuring out how to find that, resolve that. Yeah.
I feel like the market's definitely opened up, you know, after
Mhm.
2018. It makes me happy because it's allowing me to spend money on development on projects that are of Asian narratives. So I have a slate of those films in development because the market finally opened up. But it's still, I mean, I say it's such a, but in television, it's actually opened up quite a bit for me too, the Asian narratives.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really leaning into it because the opportunity has finally come where we're, you know, studio execs are saying, hey, what do you have that's in the Asian storytelling space, which is so great because
Mhm.
I didn't know I was going to be able to see that day, you know,
Mhm.
and now we're able to fully talk about it, embrace it, and then hopefully, you know, you see them actually go through greenlit. You know, you see a film like Minari that's going to be
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
yeah, in the awards circuit, you know, where people are like accepting it, the market. I feel like this year was really scary for Asian Americans because of the anti-Asian sentiment
Yeah.
during the coronavirus. And I was like so nervous, like now we're going to get pushed back again. But it seems like entertainment overall is definitely more liberal, and you know, I haven't seen that much of an issue. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. What are your new projects you're working on now?
What are our new projects? My gosh, I'm doing a lot in television because I have a first look deal at Amazon Studios. So
Okay.
those are the ones that actually lean into Asian projects. So I'm actually out there meeting so many wonderful Asian American writers in television. So that's a big thing that's transpired in this last 6 months. In the feature space, I have 2 Asian projects at Netflix that I can't talk about yet. Oh,
Yeah, that's great.
one of them,
Yeah.
people know, it's Hello Universe. That I'm working on actively. And then there's another one that we'll be able to announce pretty soon. But what's so great is now I'm seeing so many Asian storytellers, writers, directors in front of me, having Zoom meetings, getting to know them, you know, and at once I have an entire list where I'm like, where have you guys been my whole life? You know, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that bubble up is so great. And that so many of them are busy. They're
Yeah.
all busy.
No, I agree. Definitely it's a busy when so I am working on one fiction film and based on a book. And when we're looking for a writer, and we were, our preference was a Asian writer because it's an Asian story about a Japanese girl and a Chinese boy. And it was really amazing. Like so many writers were actually busy, so many of the Asian writers. And it was like good news and bad news. It was like, the person we wanted is this one or this one, or everyone is busy. But then it was like a great feeling to see that they're all that there seemed to be so much more openness to hiring these writers, whether it's on an Asian story or not. They just know that they're a great writer, and I think that was exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
something that I was like, wow, everyone's working. But
Yeah.
it just tells me there are more opportunities. It's coming around for us. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
Should we try to take some Q&A, or
Yeah.
let's see what's in the Q&A box. There. Diane, across your documentaries, who, as an interview subject, was the hardest to get access to, and how did you ultimately do it? We scrappier filmmakers love those war stories.
Well, for Finding Ying Yang, which was about Ying Yang who disappeared in 2017, Jenny Shi, the director, is just this young, sweet director who has this really difficult story, but was like fearless in trying to get the interviews. And Ying Yang disappears, and we follow the family. So the family was very open to being filmed because they wanted people to know about Ying Yang, because our goal was to talk about Ying Yang, not crime so much, but to really focus on the victim who's often forgotten. So the parents were really open. There were times when it was really difficult, especially the trial, where it was hard for them to want to be on camera. And I think that was really hard for Jenny and Shilin, the DP, to figure out when to try to push or not. And there was a period where we just said, we just have to let it go and feel like the story will somehow make the story work, even if we can't get them to speak. But so the parents for a while was difficult, but the other character that was hard to get was in this film, the perpetrator had a girlfriend who actually was mic'd and is the one that, because of what she caught on the mic, they were able to arrest the perpetrator. So she was brave enough, even after he admitted that he had killed Ying Yang, she kept the mic on and pretended to still be his girlfriend for days so that she could collect all this evidence. So one of Jenny's goals was to try to speak with her. She said no to all the stations, ABC, Dateline, all the news stations wanted, of course, her story. And Jenny wrote her a letter, just explaining the intent of the story and how we wanted celebrate Ying Yang's life and tell her story, and that we believe that she was brave, the girlfriend, to do what she did. And so she gave Jenny the only interview.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I was really proud of this girlfriend, but also Jenny and Shilin and their care in approaching her and filming.
I feel like that's, between the producer and the director, that trust has to be built with the subject matter. And that's when they would allow you into their lives. And that goes in the nonfiction space. When I told you, Diane, I'm like, nonfiction to me is such a strange term because I worked on so many real life rights.
Right.
Situation, whereas Oscar Grant, that life rights was impossible to get at the time because they were going through a civil trial, and the mother of Oscar Grant was so anti-Hollywood, because
Yeah.
a lot of Hollywood folks have went to them to say, hey, you know, we want to do a story about your son. And that trust is so important to build. Sometimes it takes a long time to get there. For Fruitville, it took us about almost a year to get that life rights. And that's between me, Forrest, and Ryan talking to them and saying and promising them that we're not going to exploit your story.
Yeah.
And we're not going to, you know, we are not that type of people. Our purpose and intention are this. And it was just a lot of that trust building. Finally,
Yeah.
at, you know, almost a year's point, she said, sure, I'll give you the life rights. And once that happened, she opened up the world of who Oscar Grant's friends were, relatives, grandmother,
Right.
everybody. But that's just, it's that trust between filmmaker, producer, and subject matter that you have to build, and you have to be patient, but also being genuine about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and to your point, like for Yang Yang, you know, a big part of the film includes Yang Yang's diaries and a lot of her writings and photos. So it meant having to build that trust with the parents and Yang Yang's boyfriend for them to give all that to Jenny to use in the film. But it did take time, and initially she didn't go in with the idea that I'm going to start filming everything. She really took the time to build that relationship. So did Ryan write the script before getting the life rights? It was just a story that he wanted to tell?
He didn't write it before the life rights, but he did a lot of research, and he was
Okay.
ready to write it. So
Okay.
once we actually signed the life rights, he delivered the first draft within a couple weeks. He was that ready.
Wow, the story was ready.
And he kept evolving it, polishing it, but because he got access to the family and relatives and friends, so he was able to put all the authenticity and nuances in it that when the family finally watched it at Sundance, they said they were so blown away that he captured all those small important elements.
Yeah.
But it's, and also like on the fiction side or narrative feature side of it, when we work with subject matters, life rights subject matters, or their families, one of my big challenges, they think that if we do take on their story, they think they're going to hit the lottery.
Right.
One thing that's very challenging because I work so much now in the life rights space with the movies that I'm working on. Boy, that's one of my tough challenges, is managing their expectations that they're not hitting the lottery.
Right.
Tell the story.
Right. Right. No, that is a huge challenge. Oh, there's David.
Hi, David.
Sorry to interrupt, but it looks like we're going to be winding down. But this conversation is like so amazing, and you guys are like sharing this and being so open and honest about what this process is like. And I just want to say thank you. But there is a question that's in there that I want to ask you as our final question. How do emerging filmmakers contact or get in contact with producers like yourselves? And this is for both of you.
Well,
I have to say, I give people my emails and they write to me, and so like a few that I'm consulting on was just people who emailed me and asked if I would be willing to oftentimes produce, but if I'm not able to produce, to at least help and consult or advise, and then and hopefully I can help connect them to others if I can't actually work on the film. But I'm really open to people coming directly to me. I think I mentioned this to you, David. When I started a few years ago, I wrote to filmmakers saying I want to be a producer, and I'll always appreciate these filmmakers, really experienced, established producers writing me back and taking the time to write me back. So that's kind of something I'll always remember. I want to always try to pay for it. What about you, Nina? Reaching you.
Well, for me, I think that I do get a ton of submissions, and that's why I'm really bummed out when I'm like, there are not enough producers. Asian producer, producers of color. So we can only take on so many projects. And I have, you know, a team that I answer to when it comes to choosing what to develop, what to invest in production. So I do have the fiduciary duties of that. So I can't take on too many where it actually would hurt all my existing projects because my bandwidth would be too limited. I would suggest that younger emerging producers really reach out and connect with emerging filmmakers. There needs to be a network of saying, younger producers say, I want to be a producer. What can I do to help your film? And then they team up. And then that makes it easier for me if a younger emerging producer comes to me and say, can you help me? Can you guide me? And I'm doing that already with several producer friends of mine who are coming into the game now or in the last year or two, where they're like, how do I do this deal? And I would pick up the phone and talk to them about it, because then that person is responsible to carry that film from beginning to end. And what's great about that, you have these emerging filmmakers or the emerging producers, they grow together in the system, right? They cut their teeth at the same time and they grow in the system together. There's going to be more and more of us. But for me, it's just more about advising, just like you, advising those producers. Instead of me advising the directors, let me advise the producers with them on what they need to do to get that film accomplished.
Yeah, and lately I've been directing folks to the directory that ADOC has and Brown Girls Doc Media. They have this wonderful directory of filmmakers, and they list what their strengths and skills are. So it's a great way to match up and find partners.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wonderful nonprofits like Visual VC that has a lot of connection. There's CAPE that has a whole roster of writers, directors, producers. There's the Film Independent, there's San Francisco Film, there's CineReach. There's just like all these wonderful organizations that support creators. When I say creators, I'm talking about producers as well, producers and filmmakers. And then, constantly be out there to say, here I am. I'm encouraging those who are tuning in, like those of you that say, I want to be a producer. Then you link up with all these wonderful filmmakers and come cut your teeth together and grow in the business.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's like, if the people that are here asking that question, if you can look and do the research, because there's so many resources, like all the organizations that you just mentioned, even showing up when we used to show up at film festivals, when it was like coming to Sundance, and there'd be so many different resources that were there. And like you said, producers and emerging producers, emerging filmmakers cutting their teeth together. Mm-hmm. I think certain filmmakers, I was able to work on Better Luck Tomorrow with Justin Lin, and a lot of the people that came with him are still working with him as he rose. And so there's a lot of that. So I don't know if there's a magic bullet, but there's also tenacity, there's also perseverance, but also being serious about what you want to do. Like you said at the beginning, it's not about being on the red carpet, but it's really getting behind and wanting to tell that story, or really being part of that team that's going to tell that story. And for all of you that are out there that are like too afraid to like step up because maybe it's our own culture that's held us back, don't do that. This is our time. This is our moment. And it's only going to continue, because this is what's going on right now in 2020. And if the pandemic taught us anything, these stories are important. These stories are relevant. These women that you see right here, these are the leaders, but they had to start somewhere. If they sat home and did nothing and hoped the opportunity was going to come, they would not be on this panel right now. So in closing, I just want to say, I'm so grateful that you guys gave of your time, Nina and Diane, today to share with us, because you were just dropping so many great ideas and so many, inspirational moments, like how do we do this, and then the trials and tribulations that you have to go on. I mean, we could have sat here for like another hour or so, but thank you so much for giving of your time today. And to all the people that were behind the scenes, Leilani, Isil, Vince, Francis, Rochelle, Dorothy, for pulling this all together for all of us. And to Visual Communications and the people from the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival, This is, again, our time. I mean, I've been doing this since 1997 with the festival, so I've seen the growth, right? And this is the moments that a lot of us have been, have been waiting for. Yes, I'm an elder, so I will. Pandemic taught me to own this, so I'm an elder. But this is what we've been waiting for. There is so much out there, so please make your projects and continue to move forward. And then also take a look at all the other projects that are in this festival, and meet the people that are on there. Join into these panels. Next week, we're having Alice Gu, Jenny Shi, and Yi Shin, and Nanfu Wang. These are powerful women that are making film and telling our stories. Yeah. And with that, I'm going to just say thank you, and let's go.
Thank you so much,
Thank
David.
you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.